All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're headed into some pretty fascinating territory, thanks to you, Area 51.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a whole stack of Wikipedia entries here that you've shared with us, and our mission today is, I guess, to cut through the noise, get to the heart of what makes this place so intriguing, the documented realities behind the intense security and all the speculation surrounding this U.S. Air Force facility in Nevada. It's legendary.
Yeah, and the stuff you've sent over gives us a really solid foundation to work with here. I think we can really dig into the history, the purpose, understand why Area 51 has become this legendary, almost mythical
Okay,
location.
so let's get right to it.
Yeah.
Officially, this place has a couple of names that you might not hear as often. Homey Airport,
Yeah.
that's KXTA if you're looking at like aviation charts, the ICAO code, and Groom Lake. And Groom Lake is named for the dry lake bed that it actually borders. It's a remote site managed by Edwards Air Force Base.
Huh.
And, while the official line from the Air Force is that it's an open training range, the real story here is about testing cutting-edge aircraft and weapon systems.
Yeah. And what's so fascinating when you look at the timeline is that initial spark, right? You go back to 1955, the Air Force and the CIA, they acquired this desolate spot in Nevada. And the driving force behind it was the need for this super secret location to flight test the Lockheed U-2 spy plane.
The U-2, wow.
Yeah, I mean, think about the historical context here. This was peak Cold War, and the U-2 was just this revolutionary piece of technology for gathering intelligence on the Soviets.
Hmm.
And secrecy wasn't just, preferred. It was absolutely essential.
And that intense secrecy, I mean, born out of that Cold War necessity, I mean, that's really the key to understanding why Area 51 became this lightning rod for conspiracy theories and UFO lore.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, while the government never officially declared it a secret base back then, the reality was that everything happening there was classified at the highest level, top secret, sensitive compartmented information. TSSCI. I mean, this is like the inner circle of secrets, right?
Yeah.
Incredibly restricted access, even within the military and intelligence communities.
Yeah.
I mean, it really emphasizes just how sensitive the work being done there was.
Yeah, it was a deliberate decision to operate in the shadows. And that shadow only deepened over the decades. However, there was a pretty significant moment in 2013, thanks to a Freedom of Information Act request, a FOIA request, which allows the public to request access to government information dating all the way back to 2005.
Wow.
The CIA finally publicly acknowledged the base's existence.
Finally.
Yeah, and they even declassified a bunch of documents detailing its early history and its primary mission related to the U-2 program.
Which was a huge shift. I
Yeah.
mean, right, for so long it was this place of whispers and rumors.
Yeah.
And then suddenly there's this official confirmation and a little glimpse, at least into its past. You can just imagine the headlines.
Yeah, the floodgates opened a little bit.
And for anyone trying to picture where this is, it's in southern Nevada. It's about 83 miles northwest of Las Vegas. It's near that infamous extraterrestrial highway
Oh,
in
yeah.
the town of Rachel,
Right.
which, as you probably know, has really embraced the whole Area 51 phenomenon.
Absolutely.
So,
And to connect that back to what we were just talking about, that geography itself, that remoteness played a crucial role in maintaining that secrecy.
yeah,
It's nestled within this vast Nevada test and training range,
huge.
which naturally limits any kind of casual observation.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get into the layout of the land a little bit.
Yeah.
The original base was a rectangle about 6 miles by 10 miles, but it's now part of this much larger area called the Groom Box, which is a whopping 23 by 25 miles of restricted airspace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a significant chunk of sky that's off limits.
What kind of measures do you think they take to enforce that no-fly zone?
Well, they have to have very strict protocols in place. I mean, we're talking, radar surveillance, potentially even interception by military aircraft.
Right.
The penalties for unauthorized entry into that airspace are severe.
Right.
And this restricted airspace isn't isolated. I mean, it's connected to the internal road network of the Nevada test site.
Mm-hmm.
There are paved roads leading to places like Mercury and Yucca Flat. There's Groom Lake Road, which heads kind of northeast through the jumbled hills, past that well-known security checkpoint,
Right.
and then eventually connects with State Route 375.
And geographically, it's in some rather interesting company, right? I mean, it shares a border with Yucca Flat.
Right.
The site of an astounding 739 nuclear tests.
Yeah, that's a lot of nuclear tests.
Yeah. And not too far to the southwest is the Yucca Mountain Nuclear Waste Repository. Makes you wonder about the neighborhood, right? And the level of security in the whole region.
It certainly underscores the isolated and highly controlled nature of the area. And then we have Groom Lake itself.
Mhm.
You know, the dry salt flat that gave the base one of its names.
Right.
It's quite substantial, about 3.75 miles north to south and 3 miles east to west. It sits at an elevation of over 4,400 feet. And critically, this is what Kelly Johnson quickly recognized, you know, this vast, flat, dry surface. It provided this ideal natural runway for testing these experimental aircraft.
Yeah, which brings us to the iconic name Area 51.
Right.
Where did that even come from? It's such a memorable and mysterious designation.
Well, the exact origin is actually a bit of a mystery itself, which only adds to the intrigue.
Right.
One theory is that it might have come from an Atomic Energy Commission numbering grid.
Right.
You know, the AEC was the government agency responsible for nuclear materials and testing back then.
Right.
Which kind of highlights the sensitive nature of the land, although the site wasn't officially part of that grid. Another idea is that the number 51 was chosen simply because it was unlikely that the AEC would ever use it.
Oh, okay.
So in their declassified documents, the CIA consistently refers to it as Homey Airport and Groom Lake.
So Area 51 might just be this kind of bureaucratic label that's stuck.
Yeah,
Right.
certainly catchy.
Yeah. It's also picked up some more evocative nicknames over the years, like Dreamland and Paradise Ranch.
Well, thank you.
Paradise Ranch especially.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of inviting. And we know that was a moniker coined by Lockheed's Kelly Johnson himself. A bit of marketing spin, I guess, to try and make the remote and very basic living conditions out there a little more appealing to the workers who had to relocate there.
Right, a little bit of sugarcoating.
Yeah. And of course, the airspace has its own official designation, Restricted Area 4808 North, or R4808N.
Yeah, which is, very official sounding.
Right.
But it's interesting to remember that the Groom Range area, it had a history even before the airfield was established. There was lead and silver mining activity in the 19th and early 20th centuries, including the Groom Lead Mines Limited.
Okay.
That's likely where the Groom and Groom Lake originates. And the airfield itself wasn't entirely new when the CIA arrived. It started as Indian Springs Air Force Auxiliary Field back in 1942 with a couple of unpaved runways.
Oh, okay.
So the location had some existing, albeit very basic infrastructure.
So it wasn't completely a blank slate, like an empty patch of desert, when the CIA came calling in 1955 for the U-2 program.
Right, exactly.
Codenamed Project Aquatone.
Project Aquatone.
And the sources you shared really emphasize the extreme secrecy surrounding the U-2, and it makes sense why they needed such a remote and secure testing location, far away from the more public facilities, like at Edwards or Lockheed's plant in Palmdale.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Richard Bissell Jr., who was the project director, he fully grasped that critical need for isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And Kelly Johnson's quick recognition of Groom Lake's potential, that vast natural runway, that was absolutely pivotal.
Yeah.
The CIA then approached the Atomic Energy Commission to officially acquire the land, and that's when Area 51 on the map took on, real significance.
Sort of became real.
And they added it to the Nevada test site, which further solidified its controlled and secretive status.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And Johnson's Paradise Ranch nickname, as you mentioned, was a bit of necessary PR, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To attract workers to such an isolated and basic environment. Initially, I mean, it was incredibly rudimentary.
Yeah, very, very basic.
Just a single runway, a few basic shelters, some workshops, a collection of trailer homes. But it grew rapidly. Within months, they had a paved runway, 3 hangars, a control tower, more substantial, though still basic, living quarters. They even added a movie theater and a volleyball court. A small attempt at creating some normalcy in this very unusual place.
Which is such a fascinating detail, right? I mean, even amidst the intense secrecy and the groundbreaking technological advancements, there's still this essential human element,
Right.
The need for some semblance of regular life, of community. And the logistical effort to support this this remote operation was also significant. You know, they had these regular military air transport service flights operating between Area 51 and Lockheed's Burbank offices.
Wow.
Essentially a workly commute for many, and it was all done to maintain the highest levels of secrecy.
Okay, so then came the OX-CART program, starting in 1959.
Right.
The Lockheed A-12. A supersonic reconnaissance aircraft, even more advanced and demanding than the U-2.
Right.
And it seems by this point the name Area 51 was becoming more commonly used, but the existing facilities at Groom Lake were simply not adequate for the A-12's much greater needs.
That's right. I mean, the A-12 was a far more complex and demanding aircraft to operate. They had to construct a brand new, much longer runway, initially 8,500 feet, and later extended to a full 10,000 feet. And then there was this unique safety feature on the dry lake bed, you know,
Right.
this Archimedean spiral known as the hook.
The hook. Wow.
Imagine, you know, landing this high-speed jet and needing to stop rapidly if something goes wrong. So this giant spiral was designed to provide a long, controlled deceleration path using that vast dry lake bed as a safety net.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and they even marked out, you know, unpaved crosswind airstrips just for added flexibility.
Okay.
So they really thought this through.
The hook. You can just picture that, you know?
Oh, yeah.
This massive spiral etched onto the desert floor, it really highlights the cutting-edge nature of the aircraft they were testing.
Yeah, they were really pushing the limits.
And the extension wasn't just on the airfield, right?
Okay.
I mean, they built more substantial hangars, additional workshops, administration buildings, even a proper commissary, a dedicated fire station, and more permanent housing.
Oh, yeah. It was becoming a real base.
Yeah, including surplus Navy units brought in.
Oh, wow.
It really started to resemble a small, self-contained town out there. They even had recreational facilities like a pond, a gym, a movie theater, and a baseball diamond.
Right. They had to create a whole community out there.
Yeah.
And the logistical demands continued to escalate, you know. They constructed this permanent fuel tank farm specifically designed to handle the A-12's specialized JP-7 fuel.
Oh, right.
You know, this was a unique type of jet fuel with a very high flash point necessary for the extreme speeds and temperatures the A-12 generated. Security was also significantly ramped up. The nearby mine was permanently closed, and the already restricted airspace was expanded even further. And they even had a small fleet of support aircraft permanently based at Groom Lake.
Really?
Yeah, you know, things like F-101 Voodoos, T-33 trainers, C-130 cargo planes, even an F-104 Starfighter as a high-speed chase plane.
Wow, that's incredible.
It was quite the operation.
So the first A-12 test flight in April 1962 was a huge milestone, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
With over 1,000 personnel on site to witness it.
Yeah, that's a lot of people for such a secret location.
Yeah. And while the base itself was highly secret, these incredible aircraft weren't always invisible.
I mean, pilots flying in the broader Nellis Air Force Range airspace, they frequently reported seeing the A-12 during its test flights.
It must have been quite a sight to see.
Yeah. Groom Lake was also the location for the initial test flight of the Lockheed G-21 drone in December 1964.
Right.
And by the end of 1963, the CIA's dedicated 1129th Special Activities Squadron was operating a fleet of 9 A-12s directly out of Area 51. I mean, that's a significant...
The D-21 was designed to be launched from this highly modified A-12 aircraft, designated the M-21, which had this special pylon for carrying the drone.
Right.
And the launch process itself, you know, reading through this, it sounds incredibly complex, you know.
Oh, yeah, very intricate.
Involving these carefully timed sequences of ejecting covers and igniting the drone's ramjet engine at just the right moment.
Right.
And the development and testing phase at Groom Lake was fraught with technical challenges and unforeseen aerodynamic issues.
Absolutely. And they had all these problems, you know, during the initial captive carry flights where they'd have the D-21 attached to the M-21 but not actually launch it.
Right.
Just to test the aerodynamics and make sure everything was working correctly.
So the first actual launch attempt in March 1966 was only partially successful.
Right.
But a subsequent flight in April of that same year showed real promise with the drone flying a significant distance.
It seemed like they were getting close to making it work.
But then tragedy struck in July of 66. when a D-21 collided with the M-21 immediately after separation,
Right.
sadly resulting in the death of one of the M-21's crew members.
Yeah, it was a devastating setback for the program.
Yeah. I mean, this had a profound impact on the program, and Kelly Johnson, who had expressed initial doubts about the air launch concept, ultimately made the difficult decision to cancel the M-21 launch platform.
It was a tough call, but probably the right one given the circumstances.
Yeah, but the D-21 program wasn't entirely scrapped. They had already built a number of these drones, so Johnson proposed launching them from B-52H bombers instead, which led to the redesigned D-21B variant. Testing resumed out of Groom Lake, with the B-52s flying out over the Pacific Ocean for the launches. However, these tests also didn't achieve, consistent success.
Right, and what's crucial to consider here is the rapidly evolving technological landscape during this period.
Yeah.
The A-12 was finally being deployed operationally. The even more advanced SR-71 Blackbird was on the horizon to replace it.
Right.
And satellite reconnaissance technology was making rapid strides. Satellites offered this significant advantage of global coverage without the inherent political risks associated with manned overflights of hostile territory.
Right.
So the writing was becoming clear for the D-21 program.
Several more test flights of the D-21B were conducted from Beale Air Force Base, including some operational missions over China, but the results were largely disappointing. And ultimately, the D-21B program was officially canceled in July 1971. The remaining drones were placed into long-term storage, their existence remaining largely unknown to the public until the late 1970s, when they were eventually spotted at Davis Monthan Air Force Base.
Right.
And it wasn't until the 1990s that the full story of the B-52D-21B program was finally declassified.
Yeah, it was a long time coming.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit, to the late 1960s and the continuing tensions of the Cold War.
Right.
Another critical mission emerged for Area 51. The highly secret evaluation of foreign technology primarily captured Soviet fighter aircraft.
Yeah, fascinating. So
Programs with code names like Have Donut, Have Drill, and Have Ferry.
catchy names.
Yeah, I mean, they involved acquiring MiG-21s and MiG-17s through various covert means,
Right.
including arrangements made after defections.
Yeah, and the defection of Iraqi Air Force pilot Munir Redfa with his advanced MiG-21 fighter jet was a particularly significant event.
Wow.
That directly paved the way for these evaluation programs. These Soviet aircraft were then secretly flown and tested at Groom Lake by joint Air Force and Navy teams.
Oh, wow.
And they conducted, these very realistic dogfight comparisons against contemporary American fighters like the F-4 Phantom.
The Phantom, yeah.
Yeah, they wanted to see how these aircraft stacked up against each other.
So what did they learn? I mean, what's the takeaway from these tests?
Well, what's truly fascinating is what the American pilots learned from these direct comparisons. The tests revealed that while the MiG-21 and the F-4, they appeared to have relatively similar capabilities on paper, the skill and tactics of the pilots were often the decisive factor in air combat.
Right.
Some of the Navy pilots involved, particularly one named Marlon Doc Townsend, he initially found himself outmaneuvered by the MiG-21.
Really?
Yeah, it was quite a wake-up call. However, through rigorous testing, they discovered the MiG-21's superior turning ability at lower speeds, which was a key advantage in close quarters combat.
And so these hard-won lessons, I mean, they had a direct and significant impact on air combat training, for U.S. fighter pilots, right?
Absolutely. The valuable data and insights gleaned from these secret evaluations at Area 51 were directly fed into the curriculum of the newly established Top Gun Fighter Weapons School.
Yeah.
At Naval Air Station Miramar, Mass Miramar.
Top Gun.
Yeah. And the impact of the Top Gun program is undeniable. During the latter part of the Vietnam War, the U.S. Navy's air-to-air kill ratio against enemy aircraft saw a dramatic improvement compared to the the Air Force's performance.
Wow.
And this change was largely attributed to the more effective air combat training that was directly informed by these classified evaluations conducted at Area 51.
That's incredible. So Area 51 directly contributed to the success of Top Gun.
In a very real way, yes.
Okay, and these foreign technology evaluation programs, I mean, they continue to evolve and expand, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Eventually being consolidated and moved to the Tonopah Test Range Airport under the umbrella of Project Have idea. However, Area 51 continued to play a supporting role, notably hosting Project Havey GLIBE, which focused on the testing and analysis of Soviet radar systems at a dedicated facility known as the Slater Lake Complex.
Right.
And in 1979, a significant administrative change occurred. The CIA officially transferred jurisdiction of Area 51 over to the Air Force Flight Test Center, marking a shift in its primary management and focus.
Right. It was becoming more of an Air Force show.
And there have even been unconfirmed reports in more recent years, as late as 2017, of an incident at the site involving a Russian-built Su-27 fighter jet.
Oh, wow.
These reports suggest the aircraft was being operated as part of the classified foreign materials exploitation program.
Right.
And sadly, the incident allegedly resulted in the death of the test pilot.
It's a reminder of the risks involved in this kind of work.
Yeah, highlighting that this highly sensitive work of evaluating foreign military technology likely continues to this day.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's move into the late 1970s and early 1990s, a period that was heavily dominated by the highly classified Have Blue and subsequent F-117 programs.
Right.
The development and initial operational deployment of the world's first stealth fighter,
The F-117.
the F-117.
A true game changer.
Yeah, the very first flight of the Lockheed Have Blue prototype stealth technology demonstrator took place at Groom Lake in December 1977. I mean, this program represented, this paradigm shift in aerial warfare, the idea that an aircraft could be virtually invisible to radar.
Like revolutionary. And it all started there at Area 51.
Following the successful initial testing of Have Blue, the full-scale development contract for the F-117 Nighthawk was awarded to Lockheed in 1978. The first full-scale development prototype of the F-117A, designated YF-117A,
Wow.
was delivered to Area 51 in January 1981, and its maiden flight occurred there in June of that same year.
Yeah, a lot was happening very quickly.
To manage the development and transition of the F-117A to operational status, Tactical Air Command established the 4450th Tactical Group.
All right.
While officially located at Nellis Air Force Base, the 4450th TG primarily operated out of the secluded facilities at Area 51 to maintain tight security. They even utilized A-7D Corsair II aircraft as surrogate trainers for the F-117A pilots, again, as a way to keep the true nature of the new aircraft under wraps.
Yeah, they had to be very creative with their training methods.
Yeah. The first F-117A operational squadron, the 4450th Tactical Squadron, was also initially stationed at Area 51.
And while Area 51 provided that ideal secure environment for the initial intensive testing phase, it wasn't a practical long-term location for a full-fledged operational base.
Right.
So therefore, the Tonopah Test Range Airport underwent significant reconstruction and expansion to become the operational home for the F-117 unit.
But the dedicated flight test team at Area 51, known by the intriguing codename Baja Scorpions,
Oh yeah, the Baja Scorpions.
They continued rigorous prototype testing of the YF-117A until mid-1981, even as the operational unit was being established. And to maintain absolute secrecy during this period, the F-117 prototypes were famously transported to and from Area 51 by massive C-5 Galaxy transport aircraft.
Right.
And these movements always took place under the cover of darkness.
It was like something out of a movie.
Yeah. Groom Lake played this crucial role in critical aspects of the F-117A's development, including extensive radar cross-section profiling.
Right. So radar cross-section, that's essentially the measurement of how visible an aircraft is to radar.
Right.
So they were really focused on minimizing that signature.
Weapons testing and the initial highly sensitive pilot training, for the new stealth fighter. It
was the birthplace of stealth technology as we know it.
And interestingly, there was another highly classified project happening concurrently at Area 51 during this period. The Whalers, a team working on the Tacit Blue stealth technology demonstrator aircraft.
Tacit Blue, yeah.
While less known than the F-117, Tacit Blue explored different stealth-shaping principles and contributed significantly to the design of later stealth aircraft,
Right.
such as the B-2 Spirit bomber.
The Flying Wing?
As production of the F-117 airframes ramped up, each new aircraft was first shipped to Area 51 for thorough acceptance testing and verification before being transferred to the 450th Tactical Group at Tonopah.
Right.
The gradual relocation of the operational F-117 unit from Groom Lake to Tonopah began in 1982 and was largely completed by early 1983, marking a new phase in the F-117's operational life. The original test unit, the Baja Scorpions,
Right.
was officially inactivated in 1989, but was later reformed as Detachment 1 of the 57th Fighter Weapons Wing, continuing its specialized testing activities. And even after the F-117 became operational, refurbished aircraft that underwent modifications were often returned to Area 51 for further flight testing.
Right.
The dedicated test unit eventually moved to Air Force Plant 42 in Palmdale in 1992, but it's believed that classified testing, particularly radar cross-section verification, continued at Area 51 throughout the F-117's operational lifetime.
It makes sense. I mean, they had all the infrastructure and expertise there.
So even after the F-117 program became operational and the main unit moved to Tonopah in '83, Groom Lake remained a highly active site.
Right.
The base and its associated infrastructure continued to expand with further development of the runway system, as well as additional housing and support facilities to accommodate the ongoing classified work.
Right. It was a constantly evolving facility.
Yeah. And in 1995, the federal government took further steps to enhance the security of the area by significantly expanding the exclusionary zone, restricting public access to nearby mountains that had previously offered overlooks of the base.
They were really clamping down.
Yeah. The legal status of Area 51 has always been a bit of a gray area, which has certainly contributed to its mystique. The U.S. government has historically provided very minimal official information about the site. It remains permanently off limits to all civilian air traffic and normal military air traffic security measures.